All right, welcome to episode 64 of Culper's Canteen Cup. Special shout out to Carlton Zeus. We really appreciate him letting us use his music. Roger hit me on the fly there with an intro, so that's your intro for this one. You get the professional intro from Roger and Josh usually, but you get the Lukester giving you dog crap that's done on the fly. Speaking of dog crap, so you remember that part in Jurassic Park where Ian Malcolm, played by Jeff Goldblum, is looking at this, the camera pans out and he takes off his sunglasses. He goes, wow, that's a giant pile of shit. I had that same type of experience the other day when I realized that the people who had been living in this house since 2008, they had 3 dogs, and they had been simply scooping the poop and throwing it over this wall of cinder blocks since 2008. So when in the same spot. So when I cleaned out those cinder blocks, I was like, why is all the grass and vegetation dead in this giant pile of dirt? And I kind of lean in. It's all petrified white dog poop. I mean, pile of it, dude. Feet deep. So it's like, okay, yeah. So that's going to be a dirty job, man. Mike Rowe, I need you on this one, man. It's brutal, dude. So, yeah, that's going to be a fun. I mean, how much do 3 dogs poop in the course of, 13 years? A lot.
A lot.
That's a lot of poop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the good news is it's not stinky, It just goes to show you how bad dog food is, man. Because it doesn't fertilize anything. It just kills everything around it. It's what we're feeding our dogs. It's no good.
We switched our dog over to that cold food that comes in the tubes like a sausage.
I knew
Fresh
you were
Pet.
going to say that.
Yeah,
Big
we switched him over to
fingers.
Fresh Pet. And
Your dog eats better than me.
that's your problem. That's your fault. If you come to our house, we'll feed you better than you feed you.
I doubt that.
Yeah.
Your dog is eating better than y'all are. So
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Josh is eating pretty well.
It's Roger's way of calling me fat.
He sneaks that in every episode.
He does, man. He does. He's got to get it in, which is fun. He's not lying.
So how was the wedding?
It was fantastic, man. It was really good. So real quick, shout out to Brandon and Chelsea, Kansas. Congratulations, you guys are off in the Caribbean right now, enjoying your honeymoon. So,
Are they wearing masks? Are they wearing masks out there?
I don't know. I have no idea. So I did. The wedding was really good. It was gorgeous. The weather cooperated a little bit. It was super hot, the day up, but the evening was, nice and crisp. I did not make anybody cry at this wedding, like the one last year. So there were, it was inferred that there would be no C3 interviews of wedding guests. So because of the
Fearless
journalism. I know, right? No, man, it was good, and we drove out there. It was 2 days out there, 2 days back. So, got to be on the road for that, and got to listen to 3 teenagers in the back, complain about.
Don't you hate your kids? Do you hate your kids? Because I hate my kids.
Dude, sometimes, for real, it's like your blanket is touching my pillow. And I'm just we intentionally rented, a big Tahoe. So we wouldn't have to cram everybody in the Forerunner, for halfway across the country, and but still, dude, it's still even they had their own captain's chairs, and it was still like, this is terrible, Dad. I'm not comfortable. This is terrible. I'm so bored. I'm like, well, why don't you come up here and drive? Why don't you come up here and drive 1,300 miles? How about that? Why don't you sit in the back on your phone and just chill out, play the ABC game. See how many out-of-state license plates you could do. Oh, yeah, that's right. They don't know nothing about that.
You know what? It never
cute.
changes, because when they become adults, like young adults or whatever, you still hate them. You just hate them for different reasons. At least when they're like 13 or whatever, you hate them because, they don't want to touch each other or whatever. now you hate them because they won't do yard work, or they complain about the type of ramen we have in the house, or man, all we got is damn chicken. What, you can't get any beef? Well, you know what?
Yeah.
You got a car. I'm like, dude, I'll even pay for it. You go buy whatever in the hell you want.
The dryer is too loud. The dryer is too loud. The dryer that functions fine. It dries clothes. It's too loud. The dryer is too loud. Therefore, we need to spend about $500 on another dryer.
It was in our last house. It was the dishwasher. The dishwasher is too loud. Okay, not a problem. I have a cure for that. We won't run the dishwasher. Here's your bottle of palm olive and a sponge. Get to work. And then
talking about the kids. We're still talking about the kids, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Dude, I would never. Are you crazy? I would never say that to my wife.
We're talking about the kids, not the actual dishwasher, right?
Yes. Terrible. That's terrible. So misogynistic. But so that was. I
lumped you in the same category as Cuomo.
That's right. So it was. That was today, though. That was the yard work. It's like, hey, guess what? Dad doesn't mow yards anymore, right? I have 3 teenagers. They can mow the yard, and today it was just the end of the world. Having to mow the yard, and then it was, well, I'm going to do a half-ass job on it. So okay, do a half-ass job on it, and you can do it again. I will wire headlights to that lawnmower, and you will be out there all night.
Tape a flashlight to like the handlebar right above the wheel.
Like, here's a headlamp. Best of luck. And the other thing, right? So I'm a terrible parent in the fact that I make my kids, when they mow the yard, I make them wear hearing protection. And
who does that? I bet you make your kids wear like a helmet, like riding bikes and shit too, huh?
No, I don't make them wear that. But being deaf, I was like, you will wear hearing protection. You'll thank me in 30 years. Trust me.
What kind of lawnmower you got, man? You like driving like a combine or something?
No, man. It's a little push mower, a little Craftsman business Stratton, a little mower on it, a little like 2.5 horsepower motor.
You got straight pipes coming out of that little thing?
Yeah, ramjet.
I got to put some Flowmasters on it.
Oh man.
No, but no, man. It was like, today was the day of teenage attitudes from one, and
I admire you, dude. I'm actually jealous because I've got I had 3 kids, and guess what? I'm still mowing my own yard. And
you're crazy.
I bought a riding lawnmower for the kids, and I'm still. All that meant was that I get to ride around in the riding lawnmower.
So now my weakness, which is my bad, was my daughter who's up in Tacoma. My plan was she can borrow the Jeep Wrangler until we get back to the States from Europe. Then I'm going to take it back, and then she's going to go buy her own car.
Sure.
That was the plan. And at the time we went to visit her, we weren't sure if we were staying in Europe or not. And she, for whatever reason, started to fall in love with that Jeep Wrangler. She's like, can I buy it from you? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I of course, my wife is like, well, you got to give her a good price on it. Meh. So I gave it to her for like half of Blue Book. Put it to you that way.
Wow.
Half of Blue Book. So now that we're back and we're driving around where we live right now, I'm like, man, that Jeep would be perfect. I was like, it was my bad for selling it to her. So I said to her, I was like, how about this? I'll trade you the car that's coming from Europe. It's a Mercedes GLK 350, all-wheel drive, 2012, with less than 100,000 miles. I'll trade you that for that Wrangler. And she's like, nope. Unbelievable, dude. Unbelievable. Wow. It's like, where's the appreciation? It's like, nope, I like it. I like the Jeep. Yeah, right. So yeah, that's my bad, but still, man, kids.
You can't have a Mercedes GLK 350 for your lieutenant car. Nope. Man, you gotta have something else. That's right. That's right. And you know what? Okay, here's the reason she bought it from me, though. Okay, not because she loved it so much, but because in the state of Texas. And I know this for a fact, and I hope she listens to this one. She listens to every, 7th one. But I had in Texas, if you get the Bronze Star plate, you don't have to pay registration. So, cars registered in my name. I got the Bronze Star plate on it. Why not? She's rolling
she
around
doesn't like rolling around with that. because she's like, she feels like it's like stolen valor.
Stolen valor.
Like, well,
yep.
yeah, and that's why she bought it. I'm telling you, because I was like, well, what do you want me to do? You know, I'm not going to register it in Washington. I'm going to keep it registered in Texas. Well, then I'll buy it. But, you know, here's the punchline to that one. Here's the Paul Harvey Restus story. Is she still hasn't registered it to her name. She's still rolling with those Bronze Star plates. And I'm like, what are you trying to get your soldiers and NCOs to think you got a Bronze Star, stolen valor? What's up?
She trying to get a free bloomin' onion at Outback? Nothing. What?
Don't they do like close parking somewhere, like the PX or something like that for Bronze Stars and all that stuff?
Oh my God, do they?
I think I've seen some places, right? They do like whatever.
McDill Air Force Base has spaces for Bronze Stars, Silver Stars, Medal of Honor, Purple Heart, and it's absolutely crazy. I always park in the Sergeant Major, the General Officer parking spots everywhere I go. Because I can, because I don't care.
You don't have a hair. You don't have a hair unless you park in the pregnant spouses.
I won't do that, man. I won't do that. Man. I won't do that. I won't park in those, even though, really legally the only parking spot that you can really legally have is handicap to comply with the ADA. But the pregnant spouses, man, I won't do that. But all the others, you're fair game, man. I'll park in your shit all day long.
Such a rebel. I just don't like to park that close because somebody's always going to ding my door or whatever. That's the other thing. I always like, and you know what? No matter what it is, I just go out and I park out. And it doesn't matter how far out you park. You can park a mile away, and somebody with like a 1984 Chevy Malibu, with rusted bump, is going to park next to you, so close that you can't get your door open. That is going to happen.
Dude, your brand new big ass truck won't fit in those spots anyway, man. So you got a what? 250?
So I got an F-250, the 6.7 liter turbo diesel.
God, dude, you could tow a house with that thing.
I took a screenshot of where he said he's going to keep that till he dies. I took a screenshot of that.
I'm going to have to. I can't afford anything else.
I got no choice.
Yeah, remember when I told you guys that I had this whole retirement plan that was like 9 years and this and that? Yeah, so that went out the window yesterday.
He had to finance it for 172 months.
Good Lord, man. They're like, how long do you have on your military retirement pay? Like, you're going to need it. I'm like, yeah, great.
Yeah, dude. That thing, what trim package did you get on it?
It's the off-road package. It's kind of weird. Long story short, because I don't want to bore all the listeners and stuff out there, but we've been talking about inflation and the cars and this and that. It was actually $10,000 cheaper to buy that one new than it was to buy the same vehicle 2 years older. I don't get it. I don't get it. We went and we saw one and we're like, oh, this is cool because it was like a 2019. I'm like, okay, that's cool, 2019. Because bottom line is I just need something to tow. And I was looking for a gasser. They didn't have any gassers on the lot. So like, hey, we have a diesel out here. This is what you're looking for. We go look at it. It's got 40,000 miles on it. It was, whatever the price was. I was like, that's a little steep. I'm not really ready to pull the trigger on that cost. And he's like, well, you know what? You should try the build your own model. If you build your own model, you get it at MSRP and yada, yada, yada. And you go to the head of the line for the chip thing, chip shortage. So I built it, and somebody else had actually bought this vehicle the night before. Financing fell through. And so we go work the numbers out. And so it's the same truck, except it didn't have the leather interior. Didn't have the leather seats. So it's the same truck as the 2019 that we looked at, $10,000 cheaper. A new vehicle was $10,000 cheaper than the used one. I don't understand it.
But you don't have leather seats.
No, well, see, the funny thing is this. I don't like leather seats. So that was one of the things when, because especially out here in Arizona, man, it's hot, dude. And it's sticky or whatever. And this is the first vehicle I've seen. I'm sure they're out there. It's the first vehicle I've seen with cloth seats that are heated. Because normally cloth seats aren't heated.
Really?
It's all leather.
Yeah.
I was like, AC?
I was like, this is meant to be.
Did they have AC in the seats, though?
No, mine does not. The other one might have. The other one might have had AC in it.
That's a nice feeling right there. I was just having a flashback, Josh. I was just having a flashback while Roger was talking of this kid in the fourth grade named Billy, right? And Billy came to school after Christmas, and he was talking about the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier he got, and how, he's like, yeah, it's great, but, the decals aren't sticky enough. So like the USA that I put on the side and the star, they're not sticky enough. So I was, man, screw you, Billy, with your G.I. Joe aircraft carrier F-250 diesel.
Dude, every Christmas I'm bitter because I know it's just another Christmas since I was 14. I'm waking up to no G.I. Joe aircraft carrier.
Or F-250 diesel, man.
Or an F-250 diesel.
Whatever. You got a new truck, too. You got a Tundra the other day.
Why you got to bring up old stuff?
So what'd you do? What do you do? Like, do you open up all your Christmas presents and not tell anybody, like, what you got when you were a kid? Little Luke, when Billy's like, I got the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. What'd you get? Luke's like, we don't talk about those things.
We don't do that here.
We don't do that here, yeah.
Touche.
The funny thing is, I went in for an oil change, which I had intended because, after hearing like with Luke and a couple of our neighbors talking about used car prices and this and that and trade-ins, I was like, hey, if I'm going to do it, now's a good time because if I can essentially trade in a year-old vehicle, get a bigger vehicle, get my money back out of it, I mean, it makes all the sense, right? But yeah, dude, I was in there and I was getting a trailer brake controller done on my old truck, and I was like, okay, dude, work the numbers out. And I'm like, and you better be quick. And he's like, why? I'm like, well, because I got a trailer brake controller being installed over there. And if I'm buying a truck, I'm not paying for that. So, you got about 3 minutes, to work those numbers out. So it came out and it was all good. The funny thing is it's as far as the look, the color and everything, it's the exact same thing as I had with my F-150. It's just bigger. So, and I can't park at my garage. So my daughter, who listens to every 63rd episode, she gets to park in the garage now. She gets to park in the garage now, so she's all happy because the truck won't fit. So
nice.
Speaking of talking about vehicles and inflation, so how long is transitory? Because the Fed and Biden came out when they talked about inflation, and I don't know if you heard Fed Pal the other day. Said, yeah, guys and gals, inflation's happening. Newsflash, right? Surprise, inflation's happening. And he's like, it's transitory. So we expect it through the end of the year. Okay, so inflation's been going up for, I think this is the third month in a row now, right? So that takes us back to what, roughly May-ish, April, May, give or take. So if you go from April, well, I'll give you May. Let's go from May. If you go from May to December, is that transitory still? Or is that like permanent? Or not permanent, but you know what I mean. That's the state of the economy at the time, right?
It's 2 quarters.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Does it have to go 3 to be true?
I'd have to see the definition of transitory. I mean, it might be kind of ambiguous.
I mean, somebody tells me transitory, I'm thinking, a couple months, maybe 3.
That's what
Right? It's like, okay. Or like you're saying like a quarter. Like, okay, I could see a quarter, and then we're going to start to see dips or whatever. I'm like, hey, once we get into December, which we know it's not going to be fixed by December, because now, I'll kick it off here to Josh as we get into the CDC and mask guidance and the Delta variant, and then the Echo variant will be out and the Foxtrot variant will be out. But it's, as I don't know if we were going to expect more lockdowns or we're already seeing the mask stuff come out. So, Josh, I guess let's go start with you. I know you were talking about teeing off from the CDC, your favorite organization out there. What's your thoughts, man?
Dude, all right. So I have a lot to say on the CDC. They're currently my favorite organization, followed by a close second of the Transportation Security Administration, and then the ATF. 3 completely useless entities within the United States government that should all be burnt to the ground, and never done, never to come again. All right, so everybody knows the CDC released they came back out and extended for another 60 days the moratorium on evictions, right? And of course, Diane, pro-vax, pro-mask, she absolutely, Diane and Chad lauded this, and everything, and nobody stopped to really think about the impact of that. And so, real quick, for those of you who are familiar with the CDC, so it was started in 1946. It was originally started to combat malaria, in a malaria outbreak. And so it was headquartered, it's headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, because it's the South, it's hot, it's humid, and there was a lot of malaria in the South back then. So it started out with about 400 employees. It has ballooned to over 10,000 now. And now they have multiple locations. They've got one in Fort Collins, Colorado, up in Raleigh in the Research Triangle Park in North Carolina. You got the National Institute for Occupational Safety, which is, they have multiple offices, Cincinnati, Morgantown, West Virginia, Pittsburgh, Spokane, and DC. And then you also have a BSL level 4 laboratory. It's only one of two in the world that is at its campus in Atlanta, which is on the north side. It's around in Brookhaven, which probably not where I would want a level 4 lab in, dead center in the middle of a major metropolitan area. But I don't know, maybe one day Atlanta will be the new Wuhan, and a virus will escape from there. So let's talk about the authorities. What authorities does the CDC carry? So they derive their authority, and this is straight from the CDC's website. You can go on there and look. They say they obtain their authority from the Commerce Clause, which anybody who's read the Constitution, you know that's in Article 1, Section 8. All right, so the Commerce Clause, which I didn't understand until later. Put a pin in that. And then they have the Public Health Service Act, specifically Section 361, which are authorized to, take measures to prevent entry and, quote, prevent entry and spread of communicable diseases from foreign countries into the United States and between states. All right, so that's key later as well. And that's Health and Human Services, and they delegated that to the CDC. So the eviction moratorium, I'll go through the specifics of the eviction moratorium, and then I'll kick it to Luke for some thoughts, and then we'll just keep going around, man. Because like I said, I have pages and pages of notes because it just gets worse. All right, so who qualifies to basically not be evicted? They don't have to pay their bills, and they won't be evicted. All right, if you can say yes to any one of these, you qualify. You received a STEMI check in 2020 or 2021. You were not required to report any income to the IRS in 2020. You're not receiving, or you are receiving, supplemental nutrition assistance, SNAP, TANF, SSI, or SSDI. In 2020 or 2021, you made less than, or you expect to earn less than $99,000 as an individual, or less than $198,000 as a joint filer. So if you make $197,000 as a joint filer, you do not have to pay your rent. Let that sink in for a hot ass minute. All right. And so, or if you meet one of these criteria, I cannot pay my full rent or make a full housing payment because my household income has gone down substantially. I've been laid off from my work. My work hours or wages have been cut. I have out-of-pocket medical expenses, and that's it, right? So if you meet any one of those, or it's just one, not all of the above, you qualify to not be evicted, and you do not have to pay. You do not have to pay your rent. So, just on the surface, Luke, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think somebody who makes $197,000 combined with their spouse can do you think they should be able to fork over their effing rent?
No, I absolutely not. Well, my question is who actually enforces that? I'll kick that to Roger. Who actually enforces it? If the landlord is requiring a tenant to pay their rent, and the tenant complains to someone that, I got a STEMI check, last year, so I don't have to pay my rent. So who do they make the complaint to? Is that a federal complaint? Is the landlord charged with a federal crime? Does who comes and and enforces that? Who comes and makes, I don't know. It's interesting. I know just after talking to a lot of people, not a lot, a few people, I said, who were in the States, obviously, during the COVID times in the eviction moratorium. I said, well, so did you guys take advantage of that? Because a few of my friends are renting. They were like, no, our landlord still made us pay. So I think that a lot of people are taking advantage of this. I actually know a guy who owns a lot of apartment buildings, across the United States. And I was asking him how it's affected his business. And he said it really hasn't made a dent because most people are still paying their rent. Because I do think that although, Josh, that most Americans are peas, I do believe that many, many Americans still do the right thing. We have a rental property, and our tenant, who is moving in this Saturday, has every intention of paying the rent, even though I guarantee he doesn't have to. But he's going to because he's a good guy, raised the right way. My question, I guess, Roger, is, and I'm going to ask the question, then I'm going to go off a little while longer, is who enforces it? Who enforces it? And then I saw that a group of real estate, not real estate, landlords, a landlord conglomerate is suing Biden, and I think they're using some constitutional, former constitutional precedents on that. I said to myself, though, you canteeners out there, that I'm going to stop saying so much. That's my delay phrase. Instead of I say So I'm going to take a shot every time I say I'm trying not to say it as much. But, here's the deal. When the government takes something from you, like historically, and I do not agree with eminent domain. In 99.9% of the cases, I do not agree with eminent domain. But when the government historically, and by precedent, when they take something from you to build a highway through or to drill or do whatever they're going to do, they have to compensate you for that. To my knowledge, none of these landlords are getting compensated. And I know the left likes to say, landlords, it's not real work. It's not real work. Man, there's a lot of landlords out there just like me. It's an investment. It's an alternate source of income. We keep up with it. And if somebody's not paying rent there, we can't have it. So it's not like I'm a giant conglomerate of landlords or anything. But I don't know. Roger, so who enforces it, number one? Number two, at what point is the federal government going to come in and say, we're going to compensate the landlords for lost rent? In other words, we're going to pay for the tenant's rent. Do you think that'll happen? I just think this is a big mess, and I know Josh has a lot more to say and he'll probably address a few of my points, but those are the two that kind of stick out to me the most, Well,
I don't think, to begin with, to enforce it, that the beautiful thing about it is you don't have to enforce it. That it works itself out, because what happens is, and to give some background, Josh was a former, slumlord, so it's a little personal to him, because before COVID, I think he had somebody that would like 2 years without paying rent, prior to COVID. But if I am the renter, you just have no means to evict me. The only thing the CDC requires is that I submit a declaration to the landlord stating that, hey, man, due to COVID, I'm not paying rent. And the problem is when you turn around and you go to your local sheriff, or you try to file some type of credit report or whatever, or what have you, nothing happens. There's no way to force you to move out. So that's the beautiful thing, the way with the CDC's law. The other thing that you got to look at is the Supreme Court found the initial eviction moratorium unconstitutional. Said, CDC, you do not have the authority to do this. So that's interesting, because when you look at what Josh read to you, that's why they wrote it that way. They basically wrote it so that way every American is covered anyway, right? Hey, basically, I was impacted by COVID-19, so I don't have to pay rent. But having those, and I haven't heard them come out to address it, but having those stipulations like that supposedly allows them to circumvent the Supreme Court ruling. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that gets played out. And then part of the problem with this stuff is, you can't take it to the courts because it takes too long. If this thing was to go all the way up through the federal courts and then eventually make its way to the Supreme Court again, I mean, it just takes too long, and by this time, it's all over with. And it's, I know we're jumping around a little bit before I throw it back to Josh, but, I think, Luke, you hit it on the head. I think you are touching on a much bigger problem. First of all, I do believe, and this is not to bump our own chest, but I do believe that Culper's Canteen Cup was one of the first places to even mention that the CDC was the one to issue the eviction moratorium months ago. I mean, nobody even, now Fox News and everybody's covering, like, hey, guys, we were on this stuff like 6 months ago. But I think you've touched on, you're starting to pick at a scab that nobody wants to pick at yet, because when you look at the economy and the shape of the economy and where it's going to go in the next 3, 4, 5 months, next year and a half, this is going to be much bigger than the housing crisis that we had back in 2008. And it's going to be much bigger because it's not just going to impact, one section of Americans as far as, one demographic or this and that. You're really going to start beating up middle America because a lot of folks, and I don't know what the percentages are, but, it's like you guys, a lot of folks that I know are, they own one house, 2 houses, whatever, that they may rent out to, a couple people or this and that. They don't, it's not the Donald Trump where they have, half of Park Avenue or whatever. They own 1 or 2 other places. They rent them out and they make a little bit of money if they're lucky, right? Because by the time you put in your time, maintenance, repairs, and this and that, hey, man, if you can cover the mortgage in that second place, you're in good shape. So I think when you look at the money that's being lost, it's a lot of folks. It's no different than the small businesses. It's a lot of small businesses and individuals that are never going to be compensated for the money that they've lost. And then what's going to happen is, and this is where everybody, see, this is kicking the can down the road. It's such a much bigger problem because, you kind of picked at that thing a little bit. That's why, inflation is happening. That's why the government continues throwing money into this thing, because they're just trying to roll this can, man. They're just trying to roll it because they know that, okay, well, eventually Luke's got bills to pay, right? So, now we got to do something to, help Luke out so he doesn't have to pay his bills either. Well, Luke's paying his bills to somebody else who has bills to pay. So they just keep rolling this thing down, and eventually, hey, that can stops. And who's going to end up getting hurt is going to be all of us, which you're already seeing. I mean, you're already seeing it with the rising prices. Everybody was freaking out with the student loans. Everybody's freaking out with the eviction moratorium. Because we were talking about foreclosures are now going up. I think now we're starting to see a little cool off in the housing market, right? Last data that we've had out here, last 2 months, we're like, you're starting to see a little bit of a dip here. Foreclosures are starting to go up a little bit. You're starting to see a little bit of short sales, and everybody's freaking out because once that dam is let open and these floodwaters come, dude, I mean, people are going to want their money. And it's going to go top down, and you talk about foreclosures, you talk about evictions, you talk about hits to your credit. I mean, all this stuff that's flowing out there now with this free money. I mean, when you look at your average American, there's probably going to be a significant beating on their credit report. So, when you look at the averages over the next couple of years, because I think it's going to get to a point where folks have so many hits for bills not being paid, things being filed against them, this and that. I think it goes to a much longer term issue, and it, listen to that's why, we kind of joke around with it with the inflation thing, being transitory or whatever, but it does all lead to a bigger problem. And it goes back to what we were saying before with this being a much bigger problem than what it was in 2008. A couple other things real quick before I throw it back to Josh. So interesting enough, I just pulled this up as I Googled it. Under 42 Code of Federal Regulations, the CDC is authorized to detain, medically examine, and release persons arriving into the United States and traveling between states who are suspected of carrying communicable diseases. That is incredible to me. That, to me, is unbelievable. And, and the thing is, that wasn't just created, right? That's been around for a while. It's never been used. It's never been instituted. It's never been applied. But I will tell you that I think I'm a Trump guy. I'm a Trump supporter. I do place a lot of this blame on President Trump because the CDC. Okay, so we have a need for the CDC. I'm not saying they need to go away. I don't think they're worthless. I think it's like any other scientist or whatever. You're going to have things all over the place. That's why you have peer-reviewed studies. That's why you have more than one experiment. That's why you have more than one study carried out, different results, right? So the work that they do is very important. The problem is they were never meant to be the focus of because one, they're unelected, right? Unelected officials. They are not meant to be running day-to-day life. They are not meant to be running the government, which is effectively what they've been doing. And Donald Trump should have never, ever, 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 ever put the CDC, Fauci, or any of the other guys and gals out there in front of the TV camera. It should have been, hey, look, he did it the right way, I think, initially with Pence, but Pence is more of a passive-aggressive, politician. He doesn't really get out there in front of that limelight. But it should have been, hey, look, I'm taking advice from the Department of Interior. I'm taking advice from the CDC. I'm taking it from the NIH. I'm taking it from the Treasury Secretary. I'm taking it from DHS. And as the vice president, I take all those things, make my recommendation to the president, and the president says, okay, this is the guidance. This is what we're doing. Yes, we have an issue out here, but it's not just the virus, right? There's several other aspects of this thing, the economy and what have you. And that's the way it should have gone. By putting Fauci and the CDC up front, you basically said, hey, unelected officials that aren't politicians or anything, just go do whatever you want. Go do what you want. Just create some whatever, and there's no checks or balance on it. And then when you spin that into the campaign and what Biden, hey, we're going to listen to the science. We're going to listen to the science. They just continued on with it because now he's down that road. He's sold that road. There's no choice. So, that's part of why we're in the, the conundrum that we're in. But I'll kick it back to Josh because I know he's chomping at the bit on some more CDC-ish.
Yeah. So I was a slumlord for a while. When we PCS'd from Maryland to North Carolina, the market wasn't where it needed to be for us to sell our house. And so it was like, all right, well, we'll rent it out until the market comes back and then we'll sell it. And so we were good for the first couple of years with renters, zero issues. Renters were, fantastic. We got our last renter in, and she actually worked for the Department of Energy. And she just decided she had 3 or 4 kids. Each one of them had a different, baby daddy. Regia, I won't say her last name, but Regia, decided that she didn't need to, to pay her bills. And so, for a year, we paid 2 mortgages every month. I had to sell my truck. The black GMC Sierra that I had up in Maryland, I had to sell it. I couldn't afford the gas in it, driving, 70 miles round trip every day to work.
Well, I didn't have air conditioning in it anyway, so.
The AC didn't work. I didn't have the money to get it. I didn't have the money to get it fixed. I was literally paying 2 mortgages, and one of them was a Maryland mortgage, and that's not cheap. And so, dude, we went without a lot of things for a year. It literally, my kids could not do things, that they normally did during that year because we did not have the money. And so, I'm super, when I see stuff like this, it gets me, it gets me sideways, super quick. So talking about who enforces it. Yeah. So if you go to the CDC's website and you look on the Eviction Protection Declaration, it's 2 pages. The very last thing on that is, and I quote, "Attention landlords, thank you for your compliance. If you violate the CDC's eviction order, you and or your business may be subject to criminal penalties, including fines and a term of imprisonment." That is literally the last thing on that Eviction Protection Declaration form, right? For the landlords. And, I'm one of those guys you talked about. I was a landlord, yes. But I depended upon that, to pay. We had we made enough, on the rent to pay the mortgage and cover the, and then they paid the utilities and everything. It gave us a couple $100 a month. That was it. I wasn't getting rich off that. I wasn't going to retire off that. That wasn't my retirement plan. But that's what But then I had to wind up with some effing degenerate, in my house who decided she didn't have to pay her bills. But so the director of the CDC, let's talk about unelected officials, like Roger, brought up. So Rochelle Lewinsky is the director of the CDC. You know what she was doing this past January? Before she was the director of the CDC, she was a college professor. So a college professor just established law in the United States. Not only that, she negated private property, saying that's not your property anymore because you can't evict somebody. So And we sat back and we allowed it. And what did the government do? The government do anything. There, and you talk about, it taking a while to work its way through the courts. You talk about that. So Biden, the president of the United States, who knows this is not constitutional, who has made the statements that he's really unsure of the legality of this, stated, and I quote, "By the time it gets litigated, it'll give the administration additional time." Anyway, he knows it's not. He effing knows it's not legal. He knows they have just completely overstepped their bounds. And so the edict that Walensky released, she quoted the Public Health Service Act, right, which authorizes regulations, and I quote again, necessary to prevent the introduction, transmission, or spread of communicable diseases from foreign countries into the states or possessions, or from one state or possession into any other international and interstate spread of communicable diseases. Okay, so let's go down that road. So I can't evict somebody, but you can move from one state to another. More people move from one state to another that are evicted. So why is it that being banned? Why just the eviction? Because it's not. Because it's not about COVID. It's about the economy. And it's about going ahead and conditioning people to, one, rely on the government, and to two, your property is not truly your property. Right? Your private property is not truly your private property. And that's just one more step toward this socialist utopia that these shit-ass Democrats continue to try and take us toward. It absolutely boggles my mind. Right? So I dug into the Public Health Services Act. So what does that mean? What she said. Here's what the Public Health Services Act states about the CDC. They can, quote, inspection, fumigation, disinfection, sanitation, pest extermination, destruction of animals or articles found to be so infected or contaminated to be sources of dangerous infection to human beings, and other measures. So she stated that the other measures was what justifies this eviction moratorium, which is flat out bullshit. So if you go back, and again, man, I tried to get educated pretty quick, on this. So there's a term, and I'm going to mispronounce it because it's Latin, and I'm from the South and public schools. Ejusdem generis. It's Latin for of the same kind. All right, and so in the legal world, is a rule is that when a broad, vague term follows a list of specifics, that term must refer only to the same sort of things listed before it. So when you're talking about fumigating, sanitation, shit like that, that's got F all to do with eviction. That's got nothing to do with eviction, right? And so, again, the other thing that is crazy about this is that they are saying that the courts, you're not even allowed to petition the courts. Landlords are not allowed to file for eviction for their tenants, which you're saying you can't even go to the courts to fix it. You can't even petition the courts, which is a violation of the First Amendment, because the First Amendment clearly states you have a right to, quote, petition the government for a redress of grievances. So you're telling me that I don't even have the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances for my property? Are you effing high? And the best is Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters, the only people dumber than Maxine Waters are the idiots that continue to elect her. She came out and, quote, about this CDC eviction edict, about him, Maxine Waters, and I quote, who's going to stop them? Let that sink in. Who is going to stop them? A sitting member of Congress, the effing legislative branch who makes the laws, came out about the CDC, who is unelected officials making law. Well, who's going to stop them? I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of good people. There's a lot of good people who are moderates, and a lot of good people that are, right of center, left of center, stuff like that, you're pushing those people to the far right. You're pushing those people to the fringes. And dude, stuff like that, you start effing with people's livelihoods and their ability to put food on the table, a roof over their kids' heads, and clothes on their kids' backs. That's when, dude, you want to speed up the national divorce? Do shit like that, because that will speed up the national divorce. It's insane to me. It's insane that 90% of Americans are championing this, and they don't care. They're like, well, I'm not a landlord, so it doesn't affect me. If they can do it to one, they can do it to all. And people are so stupid they don't understand that. They're just so stupid they don't understand that. Luke, get some of your thoughts on that. I'm going to talk for another minute, though, because I have to. So you talked about the Supreme Court, right? So circuit judge, D.C., so it was the Alabama Association of Realtors versus United States Department of Health and Human Services, Judge Delaney Frederick of the U.S. District Court. I think that's the Fifth Circuit. That's in D.C. I can't remember. So she's a Trump-appointed judge. She initially came out and said this is absolutely 100% unconstitutional, right? So we're talking about the original one that the CDC just extended. She, quote, stated that it satisfies none of the textual limitations on the CDC, and quote, plainly imposing a moratorium on eviction is different in nature than inspecting, fumigating, disinfecting, sanitizing, exterminating, or destroying a potential source of infection, right? So what we just talked about. She even looked at that and said, yeah, that's so far outside your role as the CDC that it's not even legal. And then she got so much pushback in the media. 9 days later, she came back and she said, I'm not going to reverse my decision, but I'm going to stay the order. I'm going to stay the ruling. And it's like, what? But you came out, you were calling balls and strikes, because she even said, she's like, hey, it's not the court's, responsibility to determine the effectiveness of, laws and stuff like that, just whether they're constitutional or not. So she was calling balls and strikes as a judge, as she should. Not saying I agree with it, I disagree with it. Hey, as far as a moral basis or, feel good basis, whatever. It's like, hey, it's either constitutional or it's not. That's all we need from the judicial branch. And then she came back 9 days later after a massive media outcry and said, all right, well, I'll stay my ruling. And then even Kavanaugh in the Supreme Court ruling, Kavanaugh said, yeah, it's unconstitutional, but I'm not going to, we'll just wait for it to expire, which it just got extended. So how many more times is it going to get extended? How many more times are landlords going to have to pay two mortgages or however many mortgages, if they got multiple rental properties where people aren't paying? Hopefully there are, a lot of good folks out there, like Luke says, that are paying their bills. It's not for lack of jobs. Dude, every store I've gone into in the last couple of months has had a help wanted sign on it. Every single one, without fail. Walmart in Bozeman, Montana, they are starting people off at $20 an hour. Starting. $20 an hour, Bozeman, Montana. And people were like, well, that's in Bozeman, Montana. You better pack your shit. You better start loafing. You pack your shit and get up there and get busy. I'm working. I ain't running no soup kitchen. God, dude. Man, I hate it. I hate it so much. Dude, they are destroying this country. And people are like, well, I don't have to read mean tweets anymore, so it's fine. I don't have to worry about Trump, inappropriately touching people, even though he didn't. Yes. But never mind Cuomo. I wonder if he touched Gam before he killed her. I don't know. Oh,
that's a tough one.
Yeah,
that inappropriate touching thing. Good Lord. Kind of an aside, and I'll address your points, Josh. But man, there's a video of Joe Biden when he's given gold medals or whatever to the Capitol Police. He singles this little girl out in the crowd. She's like 5, 6 years old maybe, and just, God, go and watch it. It's the creepiest thing. She comes up, and he's like all getting up on her, whispering in her. It's gross. It's totally sickening. But anyway, go look up the video. It's gross. I agree with you, Josh, that this is pushing people to the fringes and not the fringes that are the good kind. And I'm saying it's going to push people to the more right-wing type fringes, which I think is bad. I don't think that's good. I think the fringes on both ends are bad. It's not pushing people to the left, though. They're being walked right down the aisle to the left. I don't, I think in 2019, people were being pushed to the left. I think it's more the media that was doing that. But right now, you're right, Josh. It's pushing people to the fringes. Roger has been, hammering this point for a long time that people don't want to work. They don't want to go back to work. And I think he's been right the entire time. I think a lot of people just don't want to work because how many people can afford to pay that rent but just aren't doing it? How many people are actually profiting from this? They get to, have a, I'm saying, way too much. They get to have, a little, say it again. They get to build their own little nest egg while the landowner is suffering. And it's really hard not to be conspiratorial with this whole thing. When you see BlackRock going in and buying all of these properties, and the conspiracy part of me is like, well, the federal government is pushing this because the BlackRock and Blackstone lobbying groups saying, hey, if we can just go just a little bit longer with this, a little bit longer, all of these, landowners are going to have no choice but to sell. And we'll go in and buy that up. That's the conspiracy part of me. But it's hard not to think about things like that when none of this makes any sense. I kind of answered my own question right after I threw it to Roger last time about who enforces it. Well, with every eviction order that I know of in any state, it has to go to a court. And I think Josh covered this, if the court's not going to hear it from the landlord, if they're not going to hear an eviction claim, well, then there is no need for enforcement. There is no eviction. It doesn't happen. So there's no need for enforcement, like Roger said. No courts are hearing eviction. It's crazy. There are probably some extenuating circumstances. I don't know. I really like what Ron DeSantis said, and I'll give Roger a grab bag. He can take this whatever direction he wants to. I'm giving 3 grab bag opportunities here. Maybe he'll take one of them, but probably not. He'll go off on his own little tangent. I like what Ron DeSantis said. Basically, it boiled down to this. He goes, Joe Biden, until you do something about the border, I don't want to hear a peep out of you about COVID. I don't want to hear anything about COVID until you do something about the border. And I think that's a really good point. And boy, that guy's in line for running for president. I'm telling you. Josh, I don't think you have to worry about Trump. I think that DeSantis, I think there's big money behind him. I think there's some big donors behind him. And who knows, Trump might be behind him. I don't know. I also like what Cori Bush said when she was called out on her, Roger's nodding, he heard it. She was called out on her $70,000 over the past month or two for private security while she's saying defund the police. And people called her out on that. And she threw it right back at him, to her credit. She goes, hey, suck it up, because I'm important and I've had threats on my life. So I get to have private security. And I don't care if I spend $210 million. I'm going to need this private security because I'm the one out here doing the work. So all of you can just suck it up. And it's like, wow, this is a person who does not need any more authority because she has completely swallowed the authoritarian pill. That's exactly what it sounds like, people. Go look up what Cori Bush says. That's how authoritarians talk. So the good news, though, Roger, for us as Americans, is that Joe Biden came out and said 350 million Americans have been vaccinated. Well, that's crazy. That's a good thing, I guess, because that's 20 million or 30 million more than the population of the United States. So that's good, but I'm still sticking to my guns about. Go ahead.
So we've reached herd immunity.
Well, we've beat herd immunity. 350 million of us. Man, that means some people are double and triple vaccinated, but I still stick to my guns. I think I might have said this on the last episode, but I've been preaching this nonstop to anyone who will listen, is I still think mid to late August, we're going to start hearing more about boosters. Boosters. You're going to need your booster. And then about 2 weeks after that, and I'm thinking around the 1st of September, you're going to start here, or middle of September, you're going to start hearing about booster shortages, which is going to create an artificial demand, and everybody's going to be out trying to get their booster. And my conspiracy mind doesn't want to go down the pharmaceutical pathway on that, but Roger, you go ahead. You got a grab bag. You can go any way you want, or completely.
It's actually funny because this outline that Josh failed to provide, I had a couple of those things that were written down that I was addressing. But one, you are underestimating Joe Biden, because I know for a fact that Joe knows for a fact that 350 million of the 328 million Americans that we have been vaccinated. And you know how I know that? Because he used to drive an 18-wheeler. And so I know for a fact that he is driven around the country in this 18-wheeler, because I guess he's got a, what do they call the truck driver's license, the CDL?
CDL.
So I'm assuming that, since he has driven 18-wheelers, that, he has a CDL and has personally driven around the country to witness the vaccination of the 350 million Americans out there. Dude, you can't even make that stuff up. I mean, you can't even, I used to drive one of these, and, it's like you say, it's like, no, Joe, you actually never did drive an 18-wheeler. Well, I rode as a passenger in a school bus once. Okay, yeah, Joe, that's not driving. Dude, stuff like that. So, and I understand gaffes. Okay, I understand gaffes, and we all make them, and we make them on this show all the time, and it is what it is. When you throw something out there like that is just an outright and blatant lie, I mean, that's another level. We're not talking about, hey, we're having some drinks and we're shooting the poop and, we're exaggerating stories. I caught a fish this big and whatever. You're throwing out a blatant lie like that. It's just very telling to me, because anyway, it's all bullcrap. But it brings me back to the vaccines. So we've all heard of breakthrough cases. I think New York City just went to. I didn't read the whole article. I just saw the headline that they're the first ones to mandate vaccinations or mandate the COVID vaccination. The New Jersey governor just came out and said that everybody in the schools have to wear a mask, even if you're vaccinated or not. But when you look at the breakthrough cases, and I got this from Fox News, they're reporting it the other day. So 0.03% are breakthrough cases, which means that you have been vaccinated and you're still catching COVID. Okay, that happens. That can happen out there. So I guess it takes me to this. I mean, how many people are lying about vaccinations? Because I tell you what, I mean, they were just talking about one of the other, and I forget which state it is, vaccinated, caught COVID. I mean, it's no different than the Democrats that got on the plane in Texas and flew to Washington, D.C., and they're like, they stopped reporting. We covered this in the last episode. They stopped reporting after 6 because some mathematician came out and said, hey, yeah, that's actually like statistically impossible. They're like, if all of you are vaccinated, to have that many breakthrough cases on the airplane with everybody being vaccinated, they're like, that's statistically impossible. Like, it cannot, like, go buy a lottery ticket. You have a better chance of winning. So then it just takes me back to I don't know, Josh, how many people are just lying about that? And I don't say lying in a bad way. I think it's like, hey, yeah, I'm vaccinated. So government, just get off my back. I don't want to wear the mask. I want to go out and do my thing. But how many folks out there are just lying about being vaccinated? I mean, clearly it's happening, and it's happening in large droves, because, when you look at the 0.03% versus, and again, there's no, scientific backing this, but it seems like, every time you pull up a news article, it's these swaths of people that are catching COVID, and it's just not supported by the statistics. So that just tells me that, you know what? I'm tired of government being on my ass, which we can say that now, by the way. And I know this is a total tangent, so I just got an email from YouTube that episode 8 of Culper's Canteen Cup was not made for kids. So they apparently YouTube listens and watches Culper's Canteen Cup about as much as my daughter does. Episode 8.
Which one?
I'm going to get you.
Well, I know, but
I'm going to get you high today.
I'll look it up. Oh.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
So how many people do you think are actually lying about this? And then the other thing I want you to talk about, and this is a very strange narrative, that you're starting to see the push from the left that the vaccines are more effective, even though it's not backed up and it's not supported. The vaccines are more effective against COVID than folks who have had COVID. Dude, what world do you live in with this? And I tell you, before you start, and educate me. I mean, our listeners out there, our viewers, I'm all about it, because what I want, when I read this stuff, I actually look for the study. I want to read the study. I want to read it for myself. I don't want the CDC to tell me what the study says. I want to read it myself. And I have gone through a million times through the CDC's website, NIH's website, a lot of these other clinics, and I look and they say, hey, studies have shown that masks are effective. Studies have shown that the vaccines are effective. And I'm not saying that they're not. What I'm saying is, when I go down to where normally you have like the little footnote and you see at the bottom, citing the clinic, Cleveland Clinic, like there's nothing. It's like they're just saying, well, no, you just need to take my word for it that, yeah, there were some studies conducted and here's my interpretation of it, and you're just going to read that. So anyway, that's my last on that before I kick it back to you, Josh.
No, I want to see the studies too, but they're not going to show you the studies because the studies don't match what they're saying. They'll give you the data, right? Because then they can turn around and manipulate the, anybody can manipulate the data. I can go take a poll and, I can make that poll say what I want it to, in any number of ways. As far as how many people are lying about being vaccinated, I think a lot are. I think you have, a lot of folks out there who, they don't want to get vaccinated because they're not sure of it. They're looking at it, they're like, well, I don't know if it's right for me. They may or may not have talked to their healthcare professional about it, but they don't want to be, they don't want to be outcasts. They don't want to be pariahs, and so they don't want to have that gold star of David or that scarlet letter, pinned on them. On social media or in their neighborhood or whatever. So
did we not call that? Did we not call that?
Oh, dude, 100%. But here's what this is going to lead to. Here's what's going to happen. It's going to come out to what they've done. Blasio did in New York City. Now, to go in gyms and restaurants and everything, show me your papers. You are going to have to produce a vaccine card. Your word is not going to be good enough anymore. You are going to be required to pull out your yellow shot record and show your COVID vaccination. That's what's going to, I think that's what that is going to lead to. All, people lying about being vaccinated. People flat out, people ask me, are you vaccinated? I'm like, nope. And I'm not going to.
Will you have to show it to vote?
No. Because voter IDs, any type of voter ID is racist. So you wouldn't have to do it there. Why are you trying to bring that's a poll tax, Luke. That's Jim Crow. That's
but
racist.
have you seen the numbers, the demographic breakdowns on who's vaccinated and who's not?
Yeah, a lot of minorities are not vaccinated.
It's kind of crazy because the left is trying to say, oh, well, it's all Trump people. It's all Trump people who don't want to be vaccinated. It's white, uneducated, this and that. I was looking at the demographics real heavy yesterday, especially today after I heard something on another podcast I was listening to. Because I listen to this one most of the time. I'll just listen to them on repeat, man. I just over and over because it's edifying to my soul to get this kind of education. But I do listen to other podcasts occasionally. I heard something today that there's a inordinate amount of highly educated people who have not got the vaccine, PhDs, PhDs, post they're not getting the vaccine, and numbers that would kind of shock you. And it's like, what? Well, that's kind of crazy. And then back to the minorities not getting vaccinated. I know I stole your thunder. I'm going to kick it right back to you. It is very high among the black community in particular. Asians are actually the highest. Way to go, Roger. Asians is like 77%. It's like 77% vaccinated. Whites, I think, is over 50%. Hispanics, no, it's 40-something percent among whites. I believe 48 or something like that. Hispanic, it's like 45 or 43. And then black population is like down in the 30s. And it's like, so what are we talking about here? Yeah. So keep going off. I was enjoying it. I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, no, and that's a fantastic point. Are you going to have to show it to get into a polling station? Next fall. When the midterms come up, and then local elections and all that. So to Roger's last point, I would have to go back. I'm not sure that that my biology teacher from high school is still alive, because she was really, really old, even when I was in high school. And that's been a hot minute. But I was fairly certain that if you caught a virus, after you had the virus, you had they called them antibodies, to that same virus. And that was much better than any vaccine that, was on the market. That's science, I'm pretty sure. Again, I'm one of the white, uneducated, Trump voters out there who's unvaccinated. So, I could be wrong. But that's science. But then again, you have to really put it in context, Roger. We're also talking about the same group of people who think, women can become men and men can become women. That's the same group of people who are like, a man can have a baby. I'm like, a man doesn't have a uterus. I'm sorry. A man cannot have a baby. You kind of got to have a uterus to have a baby. Again, you want to talk science, let's, talk science. So it's the same group of people you're talking about. So they're nonsensical. And they are, it's just, I don't know. I'm not going to say we should put them on trains, because that's wrong. And I wouldn't. I would never be one of those people. But there's just some people. We were having a conversation. It was a little bit of a tangent. We were having a conversation a couple of days ago. Well, actually, it's a couple of weeks ago, because I went to work earlier this week. And folks were like, some of them are just tired, and to the point to where they're like, you know what, man, if states like New York City, or New York, and then specifically New York City, because I think the rest of New York is probably fairly kind of moderate red, especially in the rural areas. The same thing with California. It's like, hey man, let's just give New York City and LA and San Francisco, like, let's just give them California, and if they want to be their own country, go ahead, man. See ya, bye. Some people are, they are actively supportive of, hey man, you want to break away from the United States and be your own country? Just go ahead, dude. Not a problem. It's not good, I'm telling you. And it goes back to my point of, like, there's good people out there who are moderates. That, man, it's the shit like this that is pushing people further and further to the fringe. Especially the right fringe. And Luke's 100% correct, man. Fringes on either side are bad. Fringes on either side, right or left, are bad. But these policies and these things, when you literally have Joe Biden about this CDC thing say, quote, courts made it clear that the existing moratorium was not constitutional. That, like, the president of the United States just said that, but yet he allowed the CDC to extend it for another 60 days. Like,
we're going to go ahead and do it anyway.
You are pushing people. I'm telling you, you want to get a bunch of people storming the Capitol? That's how you get a bunch of people storming the Capitol. I'm telling you, like, people are like, I don't know how this happened. I know exactly how that happened. We all do, because we watched it for years and years and years. We watched it under Barry. We watched it. The most divisive president in the United States has probably ever had, Barry. And people are like, I don't understand how this could happen. It was like, well, you haven't been paying attention. Pick your face up out of your phone. Because I know exactly how it happened.
It seems like God is up there, God, or those of you who are atheists out there, maybe you think we're living in a simulation and there's, a group of mad scientists up there controlling the world that we live in and how we perceive it. But for me, it's God. And it seems like God's up there like, hey, Michael, let's turn the difficulty up to 10. And that was like in 2020. Let's turn the difficulty up to 10 and see how they react. And it was 10, and it was pretty bad for a while. And he's like, let's turn it up to 11. And it's like people just kind of go about their lives with the difficulty at 11. He's like, that's kind of strange. I thought they'd break by now. Let's turn it up to 12. That's strange. People still seem to be sucking it up. They don't seem to be breaking. It just seems like the difficulty keeps being turned up. And good Lord, the science, Josh is talking about the science and what we all learned in 8th grade and 10th grade is really being turned on its head. And I'm really, really sick. Roger said it, I think it's Roger. He alluded to this earlier. I'm really, really tired of people saying, well, I'm not a doctor, so I really can't say. Or, well, Luke, you're not a virologist, so you can't really say. And I'm like, no, I can read. You know what? I'm not a structural engineer either. But I can tell you that apartment building in Miami, something was wrong there. And I guarantee you if I did enough research on it, and it probably wouldn't take that long. It'd probably take about 6 hours of research to determine exactly what went wrong. Now, can I fix it? Can I build a better building? No. But I can tell you what went wrong because we can all read, and there's information at our fingertips. So people out there, do your due diligence, but don't do your due diligence and know what you're talking about first. Read actual papers. You'll get lost, just like we do. You'll get lost real quick. But you can read papers, you can read, scholarly journals, you can read the information the CDC puts out on the negative adverse reporting and all that stuff. You can read that. They put that out there. On some stuff, the CDC is fairly transparent until they're not. But you can read that, and you can come up with your own conclusions. You don't have to be a doctor to have an opinion. You don't have to be a virologist to know that natural acquired immunity is better than any vaccine you could possibly get. Period. Polio, smallpox, all that stuff. I'm going to go off a little bit, and I'm going to let Roger go off on Cuomo and the Me Too moment, and or whatever else he wants to go off on. I'm getting so worked up here. I'm getting kind of hot under the collar, and I think I'm about to just kick it to Roger without even.
I want you to address this real quick because this goes back to what you were talking about with the unvaccinated. So I just pulled up a New York Times article, and this is pretty interesting. So at first I thought the New York Times couldn't do math because the numbers don't add up, but they allowed people to select more than one answer. So they polled reasons given by the vaccine hesitant for not yet getting a shot. And here's what's very important. Okay, 7% said the doctor has not recommended it. That's a large percentage.
Mm-hmm. That's a good reason.
Yeah, that's a fantastic reason. And 7% is a lot. That is a lot. Okay, I would actually thought that would have been a lot lower, but 7% is a significant, because if you took 7% of the population, that's a significant percentage of the population, right? Starting from the top, 53% are worried about side effects. I think that's legit. 40% waiting to see if it's safe. I think that's legit. 37% don't trust the vaccine. I think that's legit. 27% don't trust the government. 26% don't believe I need it. So those are the categories that the government needs to look at or should worry about, or the CDC or the medical community, right? Like those other ones, the side effects, willing to wait to see if it's safe, those are legitimate concerns. The 7% where the doctor says that, hey, look, I actually recommend, Josh, that you don't take this vaccine because you're in a high-risk category, that's a legitimate concern, right?
Yeah, and you've just deprived those people, that 7% in New York City, you've just deprived them, seriously, and this is not a joke. You've just deprived that 7% whose doctor said, look, you've got Guillain-Barré syndrome or whatever, and you should not get the vaccine because you probably will have adverse reactions. You are depriving them of the pursuit of happiness in New York City because they can't get vaccinated. Therefore, they can't go to a restaurant or whatever. I think they're saying, well, you can get a test or whatever. But you are depriving people, in my opinion, with a vaccine passport who legit cannot get the vaccine. You're depriving them of the pursuit of happiness. And that goes for all of them who aren't going to get the vaccine. You know, I know the point I was going to make, Roger, before I kicked it to you, and those are some good points you just made. But folks out there, I know you listen to us, but you need to listen. We have been talking about this stuff since day one. And I got people come to me who say they listen to the show and like, hey, can you believe this is happening? I was like, have you been listening to the show? We said this like 8 months ago. 8 months ago, we said this very thing is going to happen. Now, we've been wrong on a few things. Roger and I are pretty wrong on that election thing. But at least Josh was right. We were 33% right. I mean, I'm telling you, folks need to listen. You need to tell other people to listen, too, because I think that our audience is kind of on the same wavelength as we are. It's not that we're so smart. I think our audience thinks like us, too. Y'all need to tell other people to listen. Because I'm telling you, we're pretty much spot on this stuff, man. So, Roger, yeah, with the vaccinations, that was a really good point. You know, what's 7% of 350 million? You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I don't know. It's a tough one. I still think the boosters are coming. I'll tell you, I'm probably not going to get a booster unless my employer requires me to. Put it to you that way.
Which they're already doing. A lot of places are already doing it. I was at Total Wine today, and I was having a conversation with the buddy I was with, and the cashier actually said, yeah, Total Wine, they won't hire us unless we have a vaccine. And, oh, by the way, I'm still wearing a mask with a vaccine. So pretty soon they're going to make us wear masks on the Culper's Canteen Cup YouTube podcast. So it'll be great. Move on real quick. So there's like 3 other big stories out there. And Josh, I mean, you can take whichever one you want. You've got the January 6th hearing. Here's what's interesting about that. And I'll do what Luke did to me. So I'll throw out a couple ideas out there, and then you can do whatever you want. So you had the January 6th hearing. And here is they obviously had, it was a show, right? It was a performance. So you had several cops up there. Obviously, a lot of this stuff was staged. The verbiage they used, some of the keywords they used. But just a long story short, started using the term insurrection. Obviously, we've heard that for a while. We've talked about it ad nauseum on this show as far as what an insurrection is. I don't think the whatever they call him, the QAnon shaman, was actually ready to become the dictator of the United States. Call me crazy, but whatever. Funny because they didn't mention the lady they shot who died. And, oh, by the way, the cops were the only ones with guns. That never came up. Chief of police was denied the ability to testify at the hearing. Police officers said that the crowd tried to convert him. And it's very important, right? It's very important to look at the language they use because it goes back to changing the narrative, and it goes back to whatever episode we were talking about between equity and equality, right? It's these small changes on words that they use to change the narrative and to change the whole story. Because you get crowd try to convert him. When you start talking about converting, I start thinking about like Jim Jones, Charles Manson, right? That's the type of mental image that you get about the crowd. Went back into intense combat with terrorists. Started using terrorists early on in this thing. So now we're basically saying that all of those Americans that were out there, right, wrong, and different. So now we just classified that whole wing as terrorists. I went back into intense combat with terrorists. So I don't know if that guy was like a commander's driver with Buttigieg in Iraq or whatever his deal was, but I'd like to say 3 of us, and I guess Luke is with his Bronze Star, but I don't think any of us are. I'm not a war hero or anything like that. But I would put my combat experience up against with that one cop who said that it was like going back into intense combat with terrorists. All right, so again, you pay attention to the verbiage they use. And then at the end of it all, said, well, you know what? What I really need is we need more. And here it comes. The whole thing, right? I went into comp, and I think the guy actually slammed his fist, right? Because you got to emphasize that stuff. And I went back in there, and it was, man, and you know what we really need? I need more resources like paid time off. I mean, that's how it ended. I sat there and watched it, dude. I'm just like, you just spent 20 minutes talking about like, dude, man, we're in Fallujah, right? I mean, it has hit the fan, and you know what's going to make this all better? I just need more paid time off. So it's like, okay. So that's one piece. The other piece, Cuomo, dude. When I first heard the sexual harassment and assault now, I guess because they've actually gone to the sheriff. One of the victims actually went to the sheriff's office and filed a criminal complaint. But normally, especially when you look at a high-profile individual like Cuomo, you start thinking, okay, sexual harassment. I mean, there are people out there trying to make their names, and I'm not a big Cuomo fan at all, but I get it, man. The guy's he's a big-ticket dude, and people out there trying to make money and whatever. So I was like, yeah, sexual harassment. And again, I'm not taking anything away from the victims, but it's like you think somebody at that level is going to be very careful not to do anything like that, right? I mean, he's the governor of New York. So you think he's going to kind of toe the line. So it's like, he probably called somebody babe or maybe even, was a little bit more physical and slapped somebody on the ass or something like that. Not saying it's right or wrong, whatever. I'm just saying that's what I was thinking, that, okay, he probably did that and, hey, good game, Bob, and, hit him on the butt and, whatever. Dude, this guy is a sleazeball. Like, literally coming up, hugging people, and then putting his hand up their dress. I mean, who does that? Like, you have a problem when you do stuff like that. That is beyond just the slapping on the ass, hey, good game. And then now you go back to looking at his brother over at CNN, basically helping him cover all this stuff up, and CNN not even letting him address any of this stuff. Or it's not even letting him address. They're not making him address any of this. But, look at how much the media lauded this dude during the initial COVID breakout, right? I mean, they sat there and Biden said he was the golden standard for governors. Everybody came out and gave him the Emmy, and everybody was like, and what did Lester Holt say? Dude, this is what kills me. He's like, you know what? I thought that you were actually sending troops into combat. That speech was so motivating to me. So where are all these people now? Because all you did was enable it. And I tell you, it's I don't want to steal all your thunder, so I'll let you get into it. But basically, everybody and their mom has called for him to resign. The state assembly looks like that they are going to move on impeachment if he doesn't resign. So I don't know, Josh. I'll let you. You can handle one. You can handle both. You like the January 6th hearing, or do you want to take on the Cuomo thing? But don't be mean, because those cops deserve extra paid time off.
So I'm going to touch on both those real quick, and then I'm also going to touch on the Olympics, because that needs some cleaning up real quick. So January 6th, I watched some of it. I didn't watch all of it because I was traveling. Okay, the really big guy who was the one who was I was traumatized, they threatened me, stuff like that. It's like, dude, you're like 6'6", 250. 260, really? You was it the guy in the in the Viking helmet with the loincloth that intimidated you, or was it the lady that you guys fucking you guys smoked and killed? Which one intimidated you? I'm telling you right now, dude. If I'm 6'5", 6'6", 250, I'm not intimidated by anybody. Like, I'm walking around at the end of the day, nobody's going to bully me. And so the whole thing about combat. Oh, I thought I was fighting terrorists again. That dude, I'm assuming that guy's a veteran. He probably never even left the fob. He probably handed out basketballs at the gym, or he worked in the in the camp mayor's cell, going around and putting out of order signs on latrines. He was probably that effing kid who was standing in front of me in the PX at Bagram when I was coming back from an outstation covered in moon dust and everything, and just wanted to go home. And this kid's in front of me is complaining that the PX there on Disney Drive is out of lime flavored Tostitos, and this is the worst day of his life. It's the worst deployment ever. And I straight wanted to murder this little kid. I threw my shit on the floor and I walked out before I completely lost my mind. It was ridiculous. That was probably that guy. So yeah, the January 16th. But you're right. The terms that they're using is people need to pay attention. Insurrection, terrorist, combat, stuff like that. Man, that is not helpful. I know they didn't bring up the fact that they were the only ones with guns. I know they didn't bring up the fact that they shot and killed Air Force veteran, and I'm pretty sure they didn't bring up the fact that 4 officers since January 6th have committed suicide.
Yep.
4. Again, I'm not a black helicopter guy, but it's getting harder and harder not to be a black helicopter guy. It's getting harder and harder. 4? Really? Suicide? Man. I don't know. I don't think it was. We all saw the videos, multiple videos of different angles. It didn't seem that traumatic. Honestly, really. It didn't seem that traumatic. I don't know. I've been in combat. I didn't think that was combat. Maybe I wasn't in the right combat.
So you're what you're saying is, if I'm hearing you right, is that you are not an advocate for the extra paid time off.
No, any extra paid time off for them, you can just go ahead and it's like in Roadhouse when Patrick Swayze with Dalton catches the guy having sex with the girl in the back, and he's like, I'm on my break. Like, stay on it. Yeah, man. Hey, you can have some time off. Just stay on it, because if you can't handle that, you probably don't need to be guarding our nation's capital.
Well, and there were other
Just saying.
videos. There were other videos that obviously they didn't show where it's like you've got the one where the cops opened up the gate and let them go. You've got some that there was a 5-10 minute conversation going on, right? I mean, so there may have been some heated moments in there and this and that depending on the situation, but
Yeah, dude, and nobody was converting anybody, man. They tried to convert me. Whatever. Dude, nobody's trying to convert you. Yeah, nobody asked you to drink Kool-Aid. Nobody's taking you to, French Guyana. Nobody's taking you to Mount Carmel. Come on, dude. Get out of here. The Cuomo thing. So, where's the Me Too movement? Where's the pound me too? Pound, 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 pound. Me too. Apparently, Cuomo was pounding some people. And so, where you guys at? The best. Cuomo, the guy should be arrested. They're literally, the sheriff should go and arrest him with that criminal complaint filed at the police station, right? Because last I checked, even sexual assault, that's assault. If I'm assaulted and I go file a police report that I've been assaulted, that generally generates an arrest warrant. Most of the time. Yep. Right? So, but rules for thee, not for me. Cuomo, the thing I take away from the Cuomo is one, it's not surprising. It's not surprising that his brother, who faked having COVID, remember when he came out from his basement and he was like, "Oh, I'm refreshed." And so he never had COVID. That guy's a turd. He helped him cover it up. CNN is complicit. But the best was Joe Biden coming out and saying that inappropriately touching people and touching people without their consent is wrong. That is pure gold, especially after the video that Luke spoke about of that little girl who was visibly uncomfortable. So for those of you out there, and that's not the only video, that's not it's a one-time thing, it's a one-off. No, there's multiple videos. I mean, it's a running joke, that Biden, touches people and he smells people. It's literally a running joke. So, hey, out there, if you voted for Joe Biden, whether you voted for Biden on his policies or whether you voted for Biden because you were, voting against Trump, you voted for a pedophile. So congratulations. I hope you sleep well tonight. You're probably hoping that Joe Biden will touch you too. So real quick, I want to touch on the Olympics. So we talked a little bit about the Olympics in the last one, and a couple things. One, I'll go ahead and get the elephant out of the room. Simone Biles not only quit on her team, but then she came out with a list of excuses of why she couldn't compete until later when she did compete in the individual event. Right, one individual event. Not she dropped out of a couple of them, right? Because she had to. You couldn't have dropped out of the team competition, and it'd be like, well, I could do the individual event, because first it was she wasn't doing good on the floor, and it was, oh well, she's injured, and then it was, oh well, she dropped out for her mental health, and then it was, oh well, her aunt died, and then her own statements of, I wanted this for myself. When you say, I want this for myself, I can only go on your words, right? I can only use your statements to infer you wanted to be there for yourself. You didn't want to support your team. You didn't want to compete as a team. You were there for yourself. Those are her words. So she flat out quit on her team because she wasn't doing well. So she took her ball and went home. That was the equivalent of that. And she left her team out to dry. And there, dude, I caught so much flack on the Book of Faces, for my, anti-Simone Biles post and my stance. Like a lot of flack. Like I literally had probably 5 people unfriend me. And they all messaged me. They were like, I'm unfriending you. I can't believe you. And I was like, bye. Curly Bill Tombstone. Oh, well, bye.
Let me ask you something, though, real quick on her. Because as we look back at it, and you called it, early on, I don't understand, because I think it would have been a different story if she would have withdrew and said, hey, look, I got a case of the twisties, which, from what I understand, it's kind of like vertigo or whatever. Like, hey, man, I got a case of the twisties, and I'm going to break my neck if I get out there. Like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Right? Different narrative at that point. I'd be like,
dude, completely different narrative.
But she used that one too. She's used that one
but
too.
It came later, and that's the problem. It was I was injured,
exactly,
mental health, and then twisties. Then my aunt died. Then
yeah, it was just man, if she would have come out after the floor and been like, look, I got the twisties. I'm not, I'm not, I can't, I mean, there is a chemical imbalance in my body, and I'm going to break my, I'm going to break my skull if I continue. Hey, you know what? Absolutely. Like, I wouldn't have had a problem with that. I wouldn't have had any problem with that. But the whole, like, well, I was here for myself. I'm not having fun. Stuff like that. It was like, hey, man, you know what? Hey, you're the highest paid baseball, you're the highest paid baseball player on your team, right? It's bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. You're up to bat. It's just, man, I'm sorry, it's a whole lot of pressure. I can't, I'm not going to be able to do this. I can't, you're up against Randy Johnson, who, if he, because you can't get hurt, because she, people use that excuse for her, initially. Well, she could get hurt. Well, yeah, sure. I mean, you can get her doing anything. Like, you get hit in the head by a Randy Johnson fastball. Yeah, you might not, you might not get up off that ground. And so people were like, but it's, her mental health was more important. It was like, no, at that time, the team was more important. You got guys like, Kurt Angle, we're showing that dude literally had a broken neck, stayed in the fight, and won a gold medal. He didn't say, oh, I got a broken neck. Hey, team, best of luck to you. I hope you make it. So anyway, so that's all I'll say on Simone Biles. Wow. Good riddance. So the dude who was, competing against the women weightlifters, I'm telling you right now, that dude didn't place. That was intentional. That was 100% intentional. Again, I'm trying not to be a black helicopter guy. I'm trying so hard. That was 100% intentional, because they told him, dude, do not crush them, because now that opens up. See, everybody can say, see, he didn't beat all the women. So they should allow more men into women's sports. See? I'm telling you, that's what that shit was right there. And then we got the women's soccer team. They came back and won bronze. I was so happy to see them not win gold. And people were like, "You're rooting against the United States. You're rooting against your country." It's like, or you're rooting for Sweden, and you're rooting for whoever they beat to win the bronze. Is like, no, I'm not. I'm just rooting against them. Just like you didn't vote for Biden, you voted against Trump. Same thing. I feel like it sucks, doesn't it? But we did have some, folks come out. So you had the first female American win gold Taekwondo. You had the first, I think she was the first black lady to come out and win gold in wrestling.
Tamara.
And
yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Tamara.
Look that video up. Look that video up.
You're stealing my thunder.
Oh, dude! And the best was her interview, and she was like, "I am so proud to represent the USA." Like, she knew that what was on the front of her jersey was more important than what's on the back, and that's what it is. So I'll kick it over to Luke. I don't want to steal any more of your thunder, but that's
Tamara.
That's my piece.
Tamara Mensah Stock, man. Wayland Baptist University from Katy, Texas. That was a big one. I was going to contrast Simone Biles with Tamara Mensah Stock. And that was very touching. One of the reasons I watch the Olympics now in my older age, and I did in my younger age too, but I didn't admit it, was for some of those heartwarming stories and to search for a hero, man. Who's the new hero? Who's the new person to look up to? And, Josh, you caught a lot of flack. I've gotten a lot of flack, not a lot, but I've gotten a little nonsense BS flack from, bleeding hearts about Simone Biles and her mental health and all this stuff. And it, boils down to this, is she's just not a hero. She's not a hero. And no one's looking for heroes anymore. I am. I'm still looking for heroes. I'm still looking for someone to look up to. And all we get is excuses from the literal best in the world. She was. Probably still is. We said that in our last podcast. I think it was the last one, we were looking forward to Simone Biles. They've named moves after her. That woman could have gone down as a genuine hero, like Kurt Angle or Michael Phelps, back when Caitlyn Jenner was Bruce Jenner, Jim Thorpe. All these people, you could have put your name down in the history books, but now you're just someone with problems who couldn't hack it. A lot of people won't see it that way, but I do. Yeah, Mensa Stock, Roger, yeah, people need to look her video up because she was excited. That was pure joy, and what came out of her mouth was not rehearsed. That was pure joy. That's how she really felt, and I just thought that was great. Back to Simone Biles, I mean, saying, she actually took credit, or took a little bit of credit for Sunisa Lee's, gold in the individual. She's all, well, I felt it was very important. I just wanted to kind of coach her up, and it just, man, she's just disgusting, and I don't want to hear about it, man. I don't like it. There was one, the 400-meter hurdles was a real men's final. 400-meter hurdles was one of the best races I've ever seen, and the world record holder is a guy named Karsten Warholm from Norway. Just a phenom. The dude is a physical specimen. He was the world record holder, and there's a kid from Georgia, I think 23 years old, named Rai Benjamin, was the only threat to beat that guy. And it broke my heart, but, at the end of the race broke my heart, especially the interview with Rai Benjamin afterwards. The Karsten Warholm from Norway beat his own world record, won the gold. Rai Benjamin also beat the former world record, coming in second place. Ran his heart out. The other guy was just a little bit too strong. And this poor kid, he's being interviewed by NBC, whoever's covering the Olympics, and he's got his family there on the Zoom call, and he's very upset he didn't win. It just broke my heart because this kid, he just doesn't have words. He's so heartbroken. And the commentator's like, do you have anything to say to your family? Congratulations for winning silver. And this poor kid, 23 years old, is like, I'm sorry. He said he's sorry. And it's like, that's heartbreaking for me. It's like, dude, you have nothing to be sorry for. You went out there, ran the race of your life. You weren't strong enough. That's okay. But, man, you're going to be motivated, and you're going to come back in the next Olympics, and, man, you're going to blow them out of the water because this is going to motivate you. Don't be sorry. It just broke my heart. I love seeing these kids put it out all on the line. And, a kid like that who's apologizing for getting silver, because he really wanted to win. I admire that. I just wanted to hug that guy and say, man, you got nothing to be sorry for. Just like I wanted to hug that wrestler, But, Josh, I think that maybe the weightlifter was told, you don't need to win because, we need more of this transgender stuff. But I don't know, man. I think the International Olympic Committee, I think putting these mixed relays in is a real detriment to the transgender thing. I don't know if any of you in the audience have watched like the mixed swimming relays or the mixed track relays where, you have 2 men and 2 women on these relays. Boy, I mean, if there was ever a demonstration of the difference between male and female athletes, it's that. Holy cow. It's one of the most hilarious things you'll ever see. I mean, it's the whole race. The strategy behind the whole race is how do we minimize our losses from the slower swimmers or runners, which are the women. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just a fact. Watch these races. If there was ever a case against men competing against women, this is it. Or vice versa, which you'll never see vice versa. But, yeah, I don't know. I like the Olympics. I haven't watched as much as I'd like. I've noticed there's far more women's events than men's. And maybe that's because the women are winning more golds than the men's. I kind of don't like that either. I don't like that the coverage only focuses on what the U.S. is possibly going to win a gold in. Man, I like other events, I like equestrian. You got equestrian. You got those horses crip walking in equestrian. I like watching that. Anyway, I think the medal count, I pulled it up here as of the recording. We've got China, we got the U.S. with 98 overall medals. China with 79. Well, it just kind of goes down from there. I think the Russian Olympic Committee has 62. Great Britain 58. Japan 51. China's got the most golds right now, which with 36. But track and field, I think we might catch them on that. So, yeah, I guess I've enjoyed the Olympics, what I've watched, but I'd like to see more track and field personally. But that's just me. Roger, what do you think? I know Republic of Korea is winning a lot of medals, I think.
You know what? I think the the whole Simone Biles issue, the women's national team issue, it's actually taken, it's actually pushed me towards other less popular, less well-known athletes, and made me watch other events. So it may not even be a bad thing, right? It's because I refused to watch the women's soccer team. I watched the entire men's cycling thing, and you know what? And it was fantastic because I have no idea who this guy is, but I think he's from Phoenix or something like that. But he was the American, and you can see it at the end, man. They're like, all right, here he goes, breaking away, and there's like 4 or 5 miles left, and he's pushing it. And my wife and I were sitting there cheering, like, yeah, man, go, come on, and he gets blown out of the water, right? He finishes like 4th or 5th or whatever, but you could tell. It actually reminds me of the Steve Prefontaine moment. Not that I watched, I've seen the movie, to where he's like, I'm sprinting the whole thing, and they kick it out, and he's like, you know what, man, this is how it's happening, and that dude takes off, and I sat there and I was like, I don't even know this guy's name, never heard of him in my life. And I was pumped, and my wife and I were just sitting there like, yeah, and he placed 4th or 5th or whatever it was, but I was happy for the dude. I mean, and that dude went out there and just left it all. He laid it all out. He's like, dude, I am cycling till I can't pedal anymore, and it was fantastic. And I've watched, I watched some of the swimming events. I've watched a lot of events. I watched the saber, some of the fencing that I typically would not have watched, and I find myself cheering on these American athletes that I've never heard of, where maybe before I would have just watched Simone Biles, right? Oh, gotta watch her. She's great. Or gotta watch the women's national team. They're the greatest in the world, and this and that. I stayed away from those and watched these other less known athletes. So I think at the end of the day, I kind of appreciated it. The one thing that I kind of take away from it, and it's funny because now, what's her name? Lloyd from the women's national team or whatever. They're making a big deal. The story that I read this morning was she didn't take a knee during the national anthem. That's become heroic, not to take a knee during the U.S. national anthem. Now, it still kind of pissed me off because they showed the photo of her and she's standing there with her hands on her hips. And to me, it's like, hey, you're representing our country. You can at least stand there, right? If you don't want to put your hand over your heart, whatever. But it's like the whole point of the Olympics is to represent your country. That's the point. That's why we're broken down by country. I mean, it's like, I don't get it. And so they showed, I forget whoever they were playing, the entire other team was standing up. They were standing, respecting the national anthem and this and that, because that's what you do in the Olympics, right? You not only you show respect for your own national anthem, you show respect for every other country's national anthem, right?
Yeah, you real quick. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but you remember that interview that Usain Bolt did? I forget which Olympics it was, but Usain Bolt stopped the interview when the U.S. national anthem came on. He didn't put his hand over his heart or anything like that, but he stopped the interview until it was over and was like, okay. He was like, I don't want to disrespect their national anthem. People from other countries have more respect for our national anthem than the U.S. women's national soccer team.
Do you see the pole vaulter? He's an Army reservist or whatever. So Google it. It's on YouTube. So he's getting ready, and he's taking off, dude. I mean, we're not talking like 1 or 2 steps. He is probably, I'd say at least a good 10, 15 yards down, and the national anthem plays, and the dude like stops, drops the thing, turns around, puts his hand over his heart, and is like, all right, well, now I got to go back.
Good for him.
And I have no idea. I have no idea how he finished or whatever, but it's like that's the point of the Olympics. And if you don't want to represent the country, then don't go. But it's like you said, Josh. It's about me, right? It's about me. I did this for 100%. Me, and that bothers me. But anyway, that's the thing with I don't know where the women's national team goes from here. I don't really care. I don't follow them, and to me, it's no different than what's been going on with the teachers unions and this and that. You take something that people were finally fired up behind a less recognized sport. And athletes that were less recognized, and you've probably set them back for 20 years, just like you have with teachers. But as far as the Olympic medal count goes, kind of curious to see how it works out. I was doing a little bit of reading on it. I think we will catch China in the golds, but I guess the rest of the world, and maybe some of our listeners can chime in on this, but I guess the rest of the world, they don't really go by total medal count. It's all about gold. And I guess the total medal count was a U.S. thing that we started, back in the 80s or maybe even earlier than that or whatever. So with that being said, I guess we can go around the horn one more time, and then we can wrap up another episode. Josh, what's on your mind?
Oh, a lot. So yeah, man. So the Olympics again. You're there for the country. You're not there for you. And if you don't like the country, if you don't like this, then don't go. It is truly that simple. Give your spot to someone else who actually wants to be there for the country. Like it's really simple. Other than that, man, busy. Busy next couple months coming up, and so next year we got our 20th anniversary. So working on that trip, man. I think I know you just got the old RV, the family thruster there that you're going to park in Clark's driveway. But I think we kicked it around. We had talked about it, but I think we're actually going to look at buying some place over in the Smoky Mountains somewhere. And that's going to be our RV. Eventually.
Well, hopefully your 20th. Congratulations, by the way. Hopefully your 20th goes a little bit better than mine. I mean, I asked my wife. I was like, "Hey, so how are we going to celebrate this?" And she wanted to go on a trip by herself. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "I've been married to you for 20 years." She's like, "I need a couple days to myself." So
she's like, "I need a break."
I'm like, "Where are you going?" She's like, we're going to come." I'm like, "Well, can I go with you?" She's like, "Well, I guess." I'm like, "All right."
Yeah. So my wife, she's starting to do a yearly trip, yearly girls trip. So doing a yearly guys trip. So next year Luke's being all wishy washy about it. You said you're in. We go like Orange Beach, Alabama somewhere, and do go deep sea fishing and go jet skiing, go boat, and just go hang out for a couple of days. We'll see if Luke makes he probably, I don't know, he's going to give us the Simone Biles list of excuses on why he can't go.
I got the twisties.
So, he's like, I just started this job. It's like, it's over a year from now. Oh, I don't know if I'll be settled in by then.
He'll still be slaying concrete walls.
I'll be cleaning out poop still for next year.
Dog poop, but man. So that's kind of potpourri on what's going on here, and I'm gonna in the interim, I'm gonna try not to murder my teenagers. They're gonna put me in an early grave.
Well, I'm just saying you didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. It's just like, well, I mean, that's mighty close. October is mighty close to, bighorn mountain sheep season up in Montana, Colorado, Idaho, all that stuff. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying, deep. I don't know. Okay, maybe we can kick that around. Okay, so I got to get a shout out to Grant. Grant and his wife came and visited us when our house was in a shambles, and I really appreciate it. They didn't judge us at all. We love the house. It's great, but it needs a lot of work, and I'm looking forward to getting it there. Roger's going to come up pretty soon, I think, and see it for himself. I want to give a shout-out to SS Outfitters, Sky Strassner here in Lubbock. I don't know how many listeners we have in Lubbock, but if you need ammo, that's the place to get it. It's outside. It's halfway between Lubbock and Levelland. He's got 9mm ammo. He's got 40, 45, 5.56, 308, 7.62, all of it. And I asked him, man, he's got it all. And he's got it for good prices. And I asked him, I heard him on the radio. He's talking to like this old, there's some real conservative people on the radio here, man. Like fringe, we're talking about the fringes. I'm like, hey, bro, pack it up a little bit. You're not going to resurrect the ghost of Rush Limbaugh, by trying to out-conservative him. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I was listening to Sky on the radio, and he's like, yeah, we got all this. We got 40,000 9mm. And I'm like, 40,000 9mm? And then he said how much it was. And I'm like, I got to go out to this place. It's about 20 miles outside of town. And, man, yeah, he had it. And I said, what's your secret? He goes, I'm on the phone all day, guilting people, doing what I have to do to get this stuff here. You go to Cabela's, Academy, Walmart. They don't have nothing, because they don't have a vested interest in getting it there. It's a giant corporate thing. This guy is he owns the place, and he's like, I gotta sell. So he's the one. So it's a big law enforcement hangout. Lubbock SWAT hangs out there, and it's just a good spot. So you guys, if you really need 9mm, come to Lubbock. I'll hook you up. And that's pretty much all I have. Yeah, I'll be wishy-washy for a time, Josh. I guess deep sea fishing doesn't sound that bad, I suppose, after all. I know there's a lot more shout-outs I need to give. I'll think about that next week. I appreciate everyone listening. I know we've got a lot of new listeners out there. And keep listening, man, because we're right most of the time, you know?
I can't wait to pull my travel trailer up to your house. Looking forward to it. If you ever invite me, it's going to be badass.
Dude, you can come anytime because although there is a property owners association here, I've seen multiple RVs parked along the road. So nobody's going to have a problem with it.
Badass. To close out, I guess it was either yesterday or the day before. So it looks like Kamala Harris, she had to bring in some Berry advisors and some old Clinton advisors, and they had to have a crisis dinner on her bad press. And they, of course, pulled the women's card and said, well, it's because you're a woman and the press is treating you bad because they don't like women. And to me, it's like, actually, it's pretty simple. It's because you suck at your job. It's like, hey, if you would just do a good job, one, you wouldn't have to have a crisis dinner. And if I'm doing my job and I'm doing it well, I don't care what other people think. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. So, I think one day, coming up here in the near future, I would like to do an episode on good old Kamala there because even the left, man, is just like all bad. And I got one question. One question for you, Luke. So you left Slovenia.
Mm-hmm.
So how did our listens from that country go up after you left? I looked on it. I'm like, literally came back. So we were out, so Luke was there, and we fell off the charts, which means clearly he's not listening. And then, I I was part of the show. That's why I didn't have to listen. But then he leaves, and then we actually get we're like number 23 on the social science chart.
That's crazy. I don't know. Maybe they missed me so much. They're like, we just want to hear his voice one last time.
They just want to hear your voice.
I think the Kamala is a real. I think we should do that next if we don't do the First Amendment or the Cajun Conservative. I think that's a real good one because we can talk about Kamala and what 2022 and 2024 are going to look like. It's a good idea, Roger.
Oh yeah, Willie Brown. Now Josh just brought it up, so we'll hit up Willie Brown, see if we can get him on. I have been firing stuff out there off the C3 at culperscanteencup.com email address, and I tell you, man, people just don't respond. It's like I fire stuff out there with legitimate questions, and I'm trying to I'm not trying to bait them and take them down a road. It's like, hey, just tell me, because with Phoenix. So Phoenix, one of the school districts here, just instituted a mask mandate. And even though the governor, we have a state law that says you can't have one. So they just instituted one. And so I, just fired off a question. It's like, okay, well, that's cool. So would you provide the same support for a student who wanted to break the law? I mean, so do we get to pick and choose? It's kind of like what's going on with our election audit right now. And you can be on whatever side of the road you want to on that. I don't have a dog in that fight. My thing is hey, you've got a subpoena. You get to pick and choose what subpoenas you get to, follow or, comply with. It just doesn't work that way. So anyway, I know we're out of time for this week. Definitely want to thank the listeners out there and thank the viewers for watching us on YouTube. It is kind of weird how it's a completely different demographic and different audience that watches us on YouTube versus listens to us on the podcast. And it's probably the work environment or whatever. If you're listening to us on the commuter, if you work from home and you're able to pop us up on the TV or whatever. But definitely appreciate all our listeners. Appreciate all our viewers out there. Hey, thanks again to Carlton Zeus for letting us use your music. Continue to use the music. Maybe we can actually have him write us a custom song or something like that. That'd be pretty badass. I don't know if we're up on his radar yet to have him write us a custom song. And Luke was just giving me, yep, okay, gotcha. So Luke says our website will be up here pretty soon. He's working in between brushstrokes in the bathroom as he's painting it. But thanks to everybody out there. Check Carlton Zeus out, Apple Music, www.carltonzeus.com. And for all our listeners out there, stay safe and keep your canteen cups tightly secured.